Be in this virtual reading series for saints and sinners. In the midst of the pandemic we're presently in, safety requires personal distance. My latest novel, Men Touching, which is about to come from me, also occurs in a pandemic and addresses the need men have for intimacy and close skin-to-skin contact. The protagonists of this novel start as casual lovers and later develop a kind of marriage after one of them goes into recovery. These two characters have the freedom of touching which we do not have now. However, I feel that their need for reaching out can be understood by anyone. So the background is this. In 1986, in Seattle, Rob, a gay Vietnam vet, tries to go off drugs and enters a nightmarish world. After he emerges from treatment for his addiction, he seeks out help from Bart, his partner, who is a high school drama teacher and is in the process of coming out to his family, just as a friend of his is dying from AIDS. Both are originally from Port Townsend, Washington, on the Olympic Peninsula. This is how they met, and this is from Chapter 6, with an addition from a later chapter. Rob had met Bart in the midst of what they sometimes whimsically referred to as a bakery brawl. One morning, on one of his visitations to see his daughter in Port Townsend, he had arrived early and stopped in for a cup of coffee at the Crescent. This, in fact, had gotten to be something of a routine. As usual, one of the senior fishermen, obviously off-season and holding court interminably in a corner, never buying anything but talking, was going on and on about the injustice of gays having rights. It was the third or fourth time Robert had to listen to this moron. The man had a very, very loud voice, and thus half of the busy bakery, a coffee shop really, was cowed into silence. After this, it was becoming kind of a discourse. What drove Rob up the wall was the other fisherman, trim whereas this man was fat, just sat there at the table and smiled and listened to him, obviously delighted as being his captive audience. Meanwhile, a handsome, dark-haired man had come in with steel-rimmed glasses, Italian and intellectual looking. He had a wide, smiling, open face, which grinned like a jack-o'-lantern when he took in Rob. He obviously found the man in the corner's voice offensive too, and sat down as far out of earshot as possible. He took out a sketchbook already full of drawings, which he turned. Rob, intrigued, and this man was younger, at least by 10 years, was trying to improvise an opener when he heard, and the thing about these gays is, give them an inch and they'll take a mile. Immediately, Rob's gaze hit his new friends, and they burst out laughing. The pontificer instantly stopped. Maybe you two will tell us what's so damn funny? Bart, for it was Bart, sort of shrunk into the corner and looked longingly out at the patio tables through the French doors. But Rob had been nettled into just the right stance. We're laughing, he said, because you're so full of shit it's coming out your ears. The bakery came to a standstill, like a bell which had just been clasped. Outside there were lovely lines of sunlight, but not in here. The fat man stood up, so did the fisherman, as though royal guardsmen. Maybe you and I had better have a little talk outside, he said. He came over and shoved Rob in the chest. Rob shoved back so that the man, who curiously looked like Humpty Dumpty, almost rolled backwards into his 10 pins, which were the fishermen. At that moment, two strange things happened. One was another fat man whose spoon Rob had picked up and handed back when he'd first come in, sauntered over and told the other 300-pounder to back off. Confronted, the two looked like sumo wrestlers. Immediately chairs flew when they touched, leading to the second thing, which was the sidekick fishermen went for Rob, but they were surprised behind by two militant lesbians who grabbed them with full Nelsons. They shouted they wouldn't put up with this shit any longer either. The table turned over. Two bakery maids screamed. 3 urns went down like fallen idols. And Bart joined the fight in Rob's behalf. That's how they met. Before the more moderate citizens of Port Townsend could end the Saturday morning massacre, Rob and Bart left with a cut ear, Rob, and a bloody nose, Bart, Ironically, it was in the aftermath of St. Valentine's Day, and as consolation, the bakery had given them each a bag of day-old heart-shaped cookies with red sprinkles. Well, Bart said as he hobbled out, we can't go on meeting like this. These tough bakeries have got to go. How about a safer place next time, like the drugstore fountain? And he laughed, and Rob remembered it now. Bart's laughter. The man was always up and honest. And Rob had said, I was willing to do just about anything to meet you, but this is ridiculous. Was ridiculous, Bart said. We don't have to do it again. Within weeks, they were lovers. And for Rob himself, when they made love, it would be felt as though he were inside his childhood home, its columns of inner light covering him and Bart both, the long windows opening onto the ocean, to the garden below. The leaves, glancing from wall to wall in silhouette, formed slow, climbing nets of shadow, and as his fingers clung to Bart's own naked shoulders, he felt he acknowledged the man for the first time, in himself and for himself. With the sun spreading across the circular mural at the top of the ceiling, then down as the ruby light from all the lanterns of glass shaded and protected their love-making, as he admitted to himself that he was capable of loving a man. And as he did so, the garden, the light, the sea lifted him, racing toward the dome of the sky, and then through, up amongst the planets and beyond, and into a special galaxy which he recognized within a second's pause, and he saw, suspended midair and from the canopy-like heavens, small chrysalises, one of which he entered quite suddenly, and there found his father, as though the man was being prepared to be a spirit angel-like. There, it was settled. His forgiveness for him, for his father, and his father's forgiveness of him. It was quite finished, resolved. And with that, he was spun back down into the old house again, with a suddenness holding on to Bart in one of the rooms under him.